What's up guys, my name is Nate. My channel is called Real Roman Fishing. I was hoping to get out and record some new content for you guys this week, but unfortunately it's like 10 degrees, the rivers are frozen, so we're gonna do an informational video instead. So for this video, I've noticed that as the channel has been growing, I'm getting more and more questions on in the comment section here, on my Fishbrain account, on posts in like Facebook groups and things like that. It seems like there are a lot of questions that come up often for people, so I thought it'd be good to do a frequently asked question video and just go ahead and answer some of those ones that I'm getting asked more in the comments here. So these are just opinions. I'm far from an expert, but hopefully these answers might be helpful for you next time you go out. As the channel is growing too, we're also going to do a giveaway here. So we're getting close to 500 subscribers. I just thought a giveaway would be a fun little thing to do to give back, but I'll explain the details for that giveaway a little bit later in the video. So first question, what's the best time of year to fish and what months can you actually catch steelhead in the rivers here in Ohio? Or off of the rivers of Lake Erie. So as far as months you can fish, yeah, you definitely can catch all the way from like late October all the way up through May. Anytime the conditions are good, there is steelhead to be caught in those months. I would say the best fishing, if I had to choose one month, would probably be around March. That's when the spring run is generally starting to kick into effect and probably is when the absolute most fish are in the rivers. Next question, if you are fishing in winter, should you be fishing in deeper pools or in shallower runs? And I would definitely say go towards those deeper pools in the winter, or when you mentioned like a temperature of like 40 degrees outside. And then when you get to some of those warmer conditions in the spring, in March, April, May, that's when you'll see steelhead start pushing into some of those shallower runs in the riffles to spawn and to move around a little bit more actively. Next question, can I use spinners or spoons to catch steelhead? And you absolutely can. I find that float fishing is the most productive tactic for me, so fishing jigs or eggs or marabou jigs underneath a float, but definitely there are fish to be caught on spoons and spinners. I would say those work most effectively at the start of the fall run, so around the November time period, or once you get into March, April, May, again when the fish are moving around a little bit more aggressively and the water temperatures are a little bit higher. Next question, what are some of my favorite color marabou jigs and when do I switch those out when it comes to conditions in the season? I would say my absolute go-to year-round is going to be white, but I also like jigs that use like pink or black, so that might be white and pink, that might be black and pink, and I kind of vary those up more based on conditions than time of year. So if it's clear water, I'll be more likely to throw on that white, whereas if it's a little bit muddier, I'm gonna want some of that like dark and bright contrast, so that's where I'll do more of like a black-pink style setup there. Next question is about river conditions and like reading a flow gauge. So that's definitely something I'd recommend if you're just getting into steelhead. Download an app or go to the USGS website that allows you to see the current conditions at the river you're gonna go to before you go there. So you can see the flow, you can see the height of the river, and you can see how that compares to what's normal for that river, or what it was like the last time you were out there, for example. So River app is the app I use to check the conditions on the rivers I'm most interested in, but you can also just go to the USGS website as well. What's my favorite time of day to fish? I like to get out there at sunrise if possible. It gives you a great chance of like actually staking out your favorite spots before they've been highly pressured throughout the day. Gives you a chance to be like the first bait those fish see in the morning as well. You know, whenever you're able to go out, it's probably worth it still. So if you can't get out at sunrise, just go out when you can. Next question, when my bobber goes down, is there a way to tell whether it's a fish or a snag? I would say when in doubt, set the hook. You don't want to like miss a fish because you're waiting to see if it was a snag or not. But you can kind of pay attention to the way your float is moving before it goes down. So if your float is leaning forward in the water, that might indicate that your bait is actually dragging on the bottom behind, and that means that it's going to be more likely to snag. So if your float is leaning heavily forward before it drops, there's a good chance that's a snag. Whereas if your float is straight up and down in the water, and then it like shoots down quickly, that's going to be an indicator that you probably have a fish on and should set the hook. Another question about reading floats, what happens if my float is kind of sitting horizontally on the water rather than straight up and down? That's probably an issue with not having the right amount of weight under your float. So you want to make sure that the total amount of weight under your float, including your jig, your split shot, any egg sinkers, or any other kind of weight you're using, balances out to what your float is rated for. So I usually use an 8-gram float, and then under that I'll put a 1/4 ounce egg sinker, so that's about 7 grams, and then I'll have a 1/32 ounce jig, which is about 1 gram, and that essentially balances out perfectly with my float so that I know it's going to be sitting straight up and down and won't ever rest horizontally on the surface like that. Next question, what brand of crappie tubes do I use? So if you watch this channel, you know I really think crappie tubes are a really productive way to catch steelhead, and I use those pretty regularly. The brand I usually use is Southern Pro Tackle, and they're called Little Hustler crappie tubes. I usually go with the 2-inch version, and you can see I have a couple different colors here. Pearl Glow or white is my absolute favorite, but helps to have some darker presentations, like I mentioned, that black pink, or this is a little bit more sparkly. Another related question, what size jigs do I use with those crappie tubes? I typically use 1/32 ounce jig heads here, in either white or pink usually. 1/32 ounce voodoo jig head. And this is probably a good time to talk a little bit more about the giveaway. So I do want to do a giveaway as we get up to 500 subscribers. And what will be included in that will be an assortment of crappie tubes, so those Southern Pro Tackle tubes, some voodoo jigs, really strong, high quality hooks that won't bend out, and then a couple of Raven floats as well. So these are my favorite floats to use, favorite jigs, favorite bait to put on those jigs. The way it'll work is if you want to win, just make sure you're subscribed, drop a comment on this video, like this video, and then real simply, once I hit 500 subscribers, on that next video I post after that, I'll just announce who won the giveaway that way, and I'll randomly select one of those comments. Another question too, when I'm fishing those tubes, how am I actually like jigging them a little bit to get more action on them? And yeah, I really am just looking to put enough twitch in my rod that I can see that bobber bounce up and down a little bit. So not enough that it shoots all the way under on every twitch, but just twitching it enough so that I can see the bobber moving. Typically I'll do like a twitch, twitch, pause, twitch, twitch, pause, and oftentimes as soon as you pause there, that's when the float will shoot down and you can get a fish on. As far as leader length, I like to go a little bit longer than that 18 to 24 inch range. I actually am usually around like 3 feet or 36 inches on my leader length, as long as I'm fishing in deep enough water for that to work well. So here's a question about which smelly jelly scent I think works best. That's a brand of scent that I've used in some videos in the past. The one that I found worked really well was crawfish and garlic. So tipping that on your Marabou jigs or on your crappie tubes, whatever you're fishing with. A related question too, how often do I actually apply scent to that gear when I'm out on the water? Typically I'll like apply this, I would say every like 10, 15 casts if I'm not getting a bite. It sticks pretty well, and I'm not like too hung up on having like fresh scent out there on every cast. I just like to use it as a way to make sure there's some natural scent, even if it's small. So someone asked, do I use spawn, or how come I don't use spawn sacs? And I do use them occasionally, but not very often, and really not much this year at all. I think it's just more manageable to fish with jigs, and I find that I get as many bites that way as I would with spawn sac. I typically, I fish better with these jigs and these plastics than spawn sacs. Maybe it's just my style or the water I'm in. Another gear question here, what's the brand of the net I use? I did a lot of research to pick this net. So it's a Foreverlast G2 floating net, and I'm a huge fan of this net. Very affordable, it's on Amazon, it floats, so you're never gonna lose it or drop it. Next question is around any fishing spots I'd recommend. I won't shout out any specific spots in this video, but I can shout out a couple of like spot research strategies for you. So first is just checking which rivers near you are stocked, and you can pretty much always guarantee that there'll be a good steelhead population in those rivers, so I definitely start by looking to see which of those you're closest to. And then for other spot research, I like using the app FishBrain, so I've mentioned that a couple of times, so you can quickly like check out a river near you or just search the map near you to see if there are any rivers where people are catching fish. This question made me laugh, flattered obviously, but no, don't do any guide work, and I'm not close to good enough to actually be doing guide work. I put the highlights of my fishing trips on these channels, but there are plenty of times where I go out and catch one fish or catch no fish. It definitely would be very disappointing as a fishing guide. So that's all I've got for this first video. Hopefully I answered a question that was on your mind or that's helpful for you next time you go out. But if not, either way, like, thank you for watching. Really appreciate people commenting on these videos, asking questions, engaging with the channel. It means a lot. Definitely make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and be entered in that giveaway if you're interested in winning any of that gear. If you do have any other questions that you'd like to see answered in another version of a video like this, or just in the comments below, make sure to leave those. But thank you again for watching, and good luck next time out.